All right, well, the World Cup is started in earnest, and I'm delighted to be joined by Republic of Ireland international legend Packie Bonner. Packie, how are you?
I'm very good, thank you. Delighted and happy to be able to talk about football.
Absolutely. It's all kicked off. Before we talk World Cup, we might talk Republic of Ireland, and the friendly window, I guess, is over, and it's all building up now towards next March. It feels like a while away, but the two keepers got their game each, Gavin Bazunu and Kelleher. Yeah. It's a good sign for Irish football that you have two keepers at the top of their game like that are competing for the number one jersey. It's fierce competition. You've got Mark Travers as well.
Of course. Listen, we're so blessed that we have the three of them. You know, there was a period probably when I was a young man who's coming after me. Then Shea and Alan Kelly appeared. And then after Shea, we were wondering who's the next. And it's fantastic to see three young goalkeepers almost vying for the number one spot. They're all playing at a good level. Mark Travers is back in the team. And Gavin is a sensational young man to come through and play with the maturity that he does. At the level he does at this moment in time in his career. So, no, we're very blessed in that position.
Do you feel like the argument's been made for Kelleher that, you know, he's getting serious experience with Liverpool, with Alisson and training and all the rest, but that maybe a loan move and more game time?
Yeah, I knew you were going to ask that question, and to be honest, I agree. Like any young man, we're just talking about a young man from Cork, Harrington. Earlier on, I think at round about that age, 23, you've got to get game time. You've got to get out. Listen, he's going to be training with one of the best, who's going to be in the World Cup, Alisson, at a big club at Liverpool. But you cannot beat game time and getting out, getting among players, making decisions, because it's all about decision making, building up enough decision making within that brain that when it comes to the big games and when you play, that it becomes almost an automatic response, and that can be done in training or it can be done in game time. Unfortunately for Kevin, he's not getting probably enough games, while Gavin has probably built that up through his game time, which is interesting, you know, when you look at it that way.
100%. I guess it's been an interesting number of months and even year for Stephen Kenny, and look, we've had the two friendlies now, and he's blooding young players as well, but it's difficult for him because I guess it's a results-based business as well. And look, I know you're on the FAI board, but when you're looking ahead and you're seeing the group that faces us in the Euros, it's not the easiest. Netherlands and France in the same group.
No, and you're hoping maybe that France and Netherlands come off the World Cup with maybe demotivated, or maybe that they take the eye off the ball a little bit. Van Gaal will be gone, I'm sure, after this World Cup. Deschamps will probably be gone also, so that might be a bit of a change. Maybe some players gone also. But listen, they're two quality international teams. They will probably maybe be even into the quarterfinals or semi-finals, even maybe the final of this World Cup. So it's going to be no easy task, but we have a young group. Stephen is trying to blend them, trying to come up with a formula that we can win games. We know that they can actually play good football to a point, but maybe short in a few areas still. But that's an ongoing process, trying to find one or two maybe they can complement and get the balance right within the team. But it's work in progress, and it has to keep going, and hopefully we can get off to the right start in the next qualifier.
Must be the most high profile and stressful job in Ireland. Maybe it's certainly in Irish sport, because it's funny, you see split between the fans, Kenny in and Kenny out. It seems every game or every window it's a referendum over his position, which must be difficult for a manager. You know, it's results-based business, as I said, so it's stressful.
Listen, every manager knows when they're in a position like that, there's stress, there's pressure. You've got to handle it. Sometimes, you know, for Stephen, he lives in the country, so he has it every day, walking up and down the street or wherever he goes. Some managers don't live in the country and they get away from it, but that's the nature of the beast. But also, I think every manager knows that yes, you have to change the squad. It takes a bit of time. You've got to get players in, but you've got to get results at the end of it all. And time, over a period of time, you want to try and qualify. That's your job, and that's what you'll be doing. But I think while any manager's in the position, you've got to try to give them 100% support and help. And I think the fans have done that very well. Look, we had over 40,000 against Norway. It wasn't the best game in the world. We lacked a little bit of penetration. Stephen knows that. But the fans were there, and they were giving them 100% support and giving a good group of young players every help to mature and get themselves into finals. And I think that's where these players will really mature, if they can get over that hurdle of qualification And then people will take notice. The big clubs will take notice of some of our young players, that they actually can perform at that level. But you have to do it. You've got to go out and do it.
I know Stephen's planning to head over and taking a few games, especially the games that involve Ireland's future opponents. What are you most looking forward to seeing in the World Cup on the pitch yourself? Like in terms of teams, predictions for who might win it, or dark horses, that sort of thing.
It's an interesting tournament, isn't it? Because the timing of it. Like, so normally we have a big build-up. We've time to make up our mind about teams and see the results. That sometimes that doesn't tell you the full tale, but you have a time, and then you sort of the marketing and all of that sort of build up happens. This time we're kind of almost straight into it. We've just finished the league seasons and around the world, and then suddenly there's this break, and within 2 weeks we start a World Cup. So that's an interesting. The players may be fitter, they may be sharper. I do expect a high. Even though it's going to be very warm conditions, I do expect some teams to go out and press high. And try to maintain the sort of Champions League type of form that some of the clubs have shown into international football, because that's what they're used to. It'll be interesting to see will the players get injured, because a lot of players now have gone from a club environment into an international environment without much time for adaptation. So that'll be interesting to see how some of the players get on from that perspective. But I think I'm looking for an exciting one. I think the young players especially, the likes of Vinicius Junior, Rodrigo and those kind of Valverde with Uruguay, those young players who are emerging in Champions League to show now what they can do. And then the older guys like Messi and these guys, there's their swan song. Can they go out on a real high? And there's this big challenge between Ronaldo and Messi to see who's going to light up this World Cup.
Sounds like you're leaning towards the South American teams.
A little bit. I think I watched Argentina against against Italy down in Wembley. I was at the game and I thought Argentina was superb. I thought they were really strong. And a lot of them players, we see them in the Champions League, but they're not the stars. But when they blend themselves into a good, strong, strong collective group with a few stars in among it, then they become a really sensational team.
It's a crazy World Cup from a number of vantage points. Obviously, it's unprecedented in terms of just Qatar and the selection process and how they got the gig in the first place, I guess. And even today, just all the One Love armband. England were going to wear it, and now they're not going to wear it, and a number of countries have come out and said the same essentially. So, what's your take on? The other side of Qatar, I suppose.
Yeah, well, I think the FAI, and as a board member, we've made it very clear that we support immigrant workers and their task, and all the other people that has been talked about. I think we're very clear in what we've said, and we also have said that maybe this time we can use football to highlight some of these issues, and hopefully things will be better for the community in Qatar after the World Cup and so on. And I think that's the message I think we have to deliver here, that football can be something to get those positive messages out, to say that everybody's equal and everybody should be equal on the field of play, and the ones who come and support also the teams.
I suppose even I was chatting to Noel Mooney recently, and he was kind of pointing out, from the Football Association of Wales perspective, I guess they were going to leave it up to players themselves, leaders groups within the players, if they wanted to perform some actions during matches, so be it. It might be the wisest move.
I think players will focus on the football. They'll go out there. They can wear armbands. They can maybe have but in terms of if you get caught up in other things, then you're not going to be focused on what your job is, football. So I think they'll focus mainly on the football, and then maybe in interviews and so on afterwards they'll make their point. And listen, these are entities on their own now, footballers, aren't they? Nobody can control them, nobody can say what they should say, and they are leaders, and they're leaders for a sport that's international, so they will come out and say their bit.
One of the things I was chatting to Noel Mooney about was the Euro 2028 bid, this prospective bid between ourselves and England and Wales and Scotland, and Northern Ireland of course. But what's your take on that? Like, it could be something that, on the one hand costs a lot of money, but the other hand it will inspire a lot of young players.
I can't see why people would object to having a Euros here in Ireland and Scotland and England and Wales and Northern Ireland. I just can't see it, because I think if I was a young man, when I look back to my own day, we used to look to further afield for inspiration from football, to have it in our own country would be incredible for our young generation. So I'm all for it, to be perfectly honest. And I know there is cost to it, but maybe the results and whatever happens thereafter might outweigh the financial cost.
I suppose every time the World Cup rolls around, Packie, every 4 years you're reminded of the name Daniel Timofte, and it just comes up naturally. Like, is it the case? I remember watching an interview years ago with Neil Armstrong, and he was almost getting sick of being asked to be walking on the moon. Do you know, like, is it the case with yourself that so many years later, it's, especially every 4 years, it seems to crop up in these memories you're asked about the same split-second moment?
It's amazing, if you went around Europe or the world and you asked about Daniel Timofte, nobody probably remembers him, but here in Ireland everybody remembers Daniel Timofte, which is quite incredible. I spoke to him in an interview many years ago, and it was really nice to be able to speak to him about how his life went and so on and so forth, and how both of us coming together, him missing it, me saving it, how it affected both our lives, and that. But it's in my DNA, it's in his DNA, and we can't get rid of it, to be honest. And I don't mind people talking about it, to be honest. It's a good memory. It's a good memory. There's emotion around it also.
This week, you kept in touch for a small bit after the World Cup then?
Yeah, I was asked to talk to him. Just somebody was doing an interview with him, and we were speaking on a podcast, whatever, and he had spoken about. I wanted to know really from him was, what was going through his mind. I know what was going through my mind leading it up, but I want to know. And he had mentioned that one of his players had said to him that I was slow going down on my right hand side, and to put it that side, and he normally hits the penalty down the middle. That's what he said to me, absolutely. And he says he changed his mind. And you can imagine if he didn't change his mind, where would we be today?
Sliding doors moment. Jesus, yeah. Well, you weren't too slow getting down your right hand side.
Well, that day. But that's what analysis can be wrong also.
Yeah, of course. Funny, we had John Aldridge on a roadshow there in the last week or two, and he got very emotional talking about Jack Charlton and what he meant to Irish football, and he made the very valid point. In terms of a statue of Jack, there's none, and even whether it's around the Aviva Stadium, someone joked that it could be in the middle of the Walkerstown roundabout after all the celebrations in Italia 90. But I mean, do you think there should be some sort of commemoration to Jack at the Aviva Stadium?
I think commemorations of individuals is a good thing. I'm very attached to Sally Football Club because I played there for 17 years, and they've got their statues outside of the Jocks Dean of Jimmy Johnson, of those kind of people, Billy McNeil and that, and it's always nice because fans go up and get their pictures taken, and they're there for forevermore. And it would be nice, not just Jack, but maybe other people that has gone in the past also, maybe people in the future, but it would be nice to have that around. And I know it was shared with rugby, and there's not maybe that same kind of almost reason. Maybe there's a few rugby people too, of course, that would be up there. So, but it's nice to have those places to go to and keep the memory alive. That's for sure, because Jack was special to all of us guys. I know he would have his critics also, like everybody in football. Even when he was so successful over here, there was people criticising him for the way he played the game and so on and so forth, and we could have done better. But that's the nature of football. We all have an opinion. We all love it, and that's why we talk about it. And that's why we're talking about it today again also. But in the memory of Jack, of what he achieved and what he brought to the country, and what he did for us group of players to ignite the country a little bit and really start something that was very, very special for all of us, and especially you guys at the age you were. I don't know what age you were. You were probably only a gasser.
Only a babber.
Yeah.
You mentioned Celtic there, Packie, and I know that the disappointing Champions League campaign, but what are your thoughts on what Ange Postecoglou's been doing at Celtic Park? There's been positive stuff, and we're seeing the news today that Giovanni Van Bronckhorst's been sacked from Rangers.
He's gone from the Rangers. I didn't get that news. Sorry.
So it's only in the last hour or two. Wow, so it's an interesting time at Celtic. You're seeing Rangers struggling, and even Celtic playing a nice brand of football under Ange Postecoglou.
I've done most of the games all season because I work for BBC over by, and it's been a pleasure actually. It's a pleasure when you're working and you're not having to do a critique all the time on what they're doing wrong. The critique is on everything positive. What he's been able to do in a year and a half really, to come in changed the whole squad around, was incredible. Last window in January, when they brought in the Japanese, just gave them the edge and everybody else. And he'll probably do it again. He'll probably bring in one or two more. The way that he plays, the intensity he plays with, he's got players who are very, very technical. There's some of them going to the World Cup. Aaron Moy's going, Carter Vickers is going, which is fantastic. Maeda is going with Japan. So it's going to be nice to see how they get on in their countries. But over in Scotland, they're back to ruling the roost over there. And I think it's all down to the manager. I think the way, and he's calm. He doesn't get carried away too much. He doesn't go over the top, and he doesn't go too low when things aren't going so well. Even within the Champions League, it was really interesting narrative. If you look at it, Giovanni Van Bronckhorst has been sacked. Maybe he was too negative when he came out, and the fans didn't like it, even though they lost badly. But so did Celtic. Celtic lost a lot of games also. But the narrative that Ange Postecoglou was supposed to bring out was much more positive, much more about we keep playing our game, keep doing the right thing, and it'll come right. And that then sort of kind of almost, the fans were happy with that, and they did see them create a lot of chances within the games. And I think then he was able to back that up by maybe using the stats around that to back up his narrative, and they love him.
Yeah, big time. Can I just ask you finally, Packie, and it was something that it was a lovely moment before the Norway friendly, I think it was, where little kids from Creeslough in Donegal came out, and look, look, it's tough for everyone in Donegal, and for some reason Donegal seems to be a county that's constantly hit by tragedy in many different aspects. But that must have been quite an emotional moment for yourself and everyone in Donegal, but also to see the likes of Seamus Coleman, a role model, even meeting these kids from Creeslough was a special moment before the game.
Yeah, listen, it was a shock what happened. I was there in the summer, I passed through that part. I was down playing golf, and and a lot of people I spoke to used that place and that garage and dropped in there on lots and lots of occasions, and for it to happen out of nothing was quite an incredible shock for everybody concerned, and the families and the people that was lost and the families that are affected, and that hurt will go on for a long time. When you're abroad, we always become very Irish and very Donegalish, and we can almost have a I don't know if we need reasons to bring that Donegalness out in us, but this was certainly one. We felt for everybody. We prayed with them. We I suppose cried with them to a point, and we felt their real hurt and their real sadness around the world. And I've spoken to so many people. I went to New York a couple of weeks ago for an Irish Donegal dance, and it was the talk. That's all that they were talking about, and hopefully, stuff that maybe has gone on since will help these people and help the families to maybe come to terms with it. It'll take them a long time. So a tough time. But listen, us Donegal people, we're strong, we're resilient. We have had a lot of disasters in around my area too, in the sea and so on and so forth. But we stick together, and we always do. We talk about each other in Donegal, by the way, but we stick together when we're away from it, and this is the occasion that we all come together.
Warm words, lovely words. Packie, thanks a million as always.